this is a decision that should be made by the people of this country. Great moral decisions should be made by the public. They should not be usurped by the unelected judges.
So you mean we should go to like a referendum, and if we can find 51% of the people who think that life ought to be preserved, we ought to go by the democratic process?
What the rule was is that the society has the ability in a democratic society to collectively judge moral decisions. And what happened prior to Roe versus Wade is every state legislature had to deal with this issue. And it was in the public domain. If you take it out of the public domain, then you have what we have today. You have one side or the other side saying that our voice is being silenced by an elite. And I disagree with that. Now, that means that probably in some states, we will lose, and abortion will be legal.
Here in Iowa, we would lose because no, the state of Iowa already has a pro-abortion.
Yeah, but
they anticipate Roe versus Wade overturning.
They do. They anticipate it, and not only that, but in Iowa, it comes down to the hearts of the people. But I think if it were overturned, and I think it should be,
you'd have a whole different debate.
You'd have a different debate.
You don't have You don't have the authority of the Supreme Court saying it's legal for people to hide under. Now it's your decision. Now you've got, and it's easy for somebody to say, well, the court says it's the law of the land, and so I'm just going along with the law of the land. Now it's your decision.
But do you agree that it's the law of the land?
It's the court's decision.
Is a court decision the law of the land?
Well, it is. I guess the answer to that question is it's the interpretation of the Constitution, which at this point is the final determiner. But I would make the argument, and I did this in partial birth, when I passed partial birth, and was to confront
the ban on partial birth.
The ban on partial birth, right, was to confront the Supreme Court because they found partial birth abortion unconstitutional. So I thought it was within the purview of the United States Senate and the Congress to contest that and to say, we disagree with that decision, and we're going to pass it again. We're going to address some of the concerns that you had in the law, and we are going to say that we believe this is constitutional.
Okay, all right.
So we have a role. I would argue we have a role to play. If you're saying that do they have the final word? They have the final word until another branch of government comes up and contests them.
All right. So here's my question. Let's just assume that you're not just here in the total innocent guise of talking about the pro-life issue, that you really have presidential aspirations, and that
welcome to Iowa,
and that you become president of the United States. And if you were president of the United States in 1973, and Roe gets handed out, and they find abortion to be a constitutional right, if you were the president at that moment, what would have been your response?
I would have put a team together and tried to figure out a way to get back and try to overturn that decision.
So you think the only way to overturn a constitutional decision is through the broader collective process, that is to new class, new Congress, and as openings open up on the Supreme Court, replace defective Supreme Court justices with new ones that are more compatible to your worldview?
I would say there's two things you could do. Number one, to try to solve the issue of the decision, you need a new decision. Are there things that you can do as a Congress, which I did as a congressman, as a senator, or as a president, to test the court decision and continue to poke and prod to see if you can find holes in it? Are there things you can do, for example, provisions that you can try to pass and author to try to find holes and to try to get the court to reconsider the decision?
There might be another tactic, though, at your disposal.
Disobedience.
No.
Abraham Lincoln.
No,
Think
not
Abraham
disobedience.
Lincoln.
I'm talking about a different jurisdiction. It sounds like you're starting with the assumption that the Supreme Court is not only a separate branch of government, but equal, not only equal, but in some cases the last voice and superior to the other two when it comes to interpreting the Constitution. You've been following the health care debate, I'm sure. Did you know that House Bill 3200, the appellate jurisdiction of the courts have been removed 9 times? If people working in the other side of the street understand the appellate jurisdiction of the courts can be removed by legislative fiat when it comes to health care legislation, why don't you guys on our team understand that when it comes to protecting life?
We did. And in fact, you may recall back when we controlled the United States Senate and the House, we had a whole series of legislative proposals called court stripping proposals.
Yes.
That did just that, tried to remove jurisdiction from the court. We were never able to get any of those passed.
Because you didn't have a majority?
We didn't have a majority who would support them. We had a majority of Republicans, but we didn't have a majority of Republicans to support them.
So you're acknowledging that that is a tool.
That is a tool that has
limited application.
Limited application.
Because if you have to have a majority to do it.
I mean, you run through the same process that we were just talking about. I mean, you can't just do it by fiat. You have to actually have a legislative body pass something and contest the court. And then, of course, you get into a battle of the court as to whether that is permissible or constitutional, which we have, to my knowledge, not done.
Isn't it time we had that?
Look, I'm certainly prepared. I have some very serious problems with the idea that the court is a superior branch of government. That they are an equal branch of government. Under, of course, as you know, under Marbury versus Madison, they've asserted themselves.
They say, hey, we got more power than you.
And that has been the framework on which this country has run for the past 200 years. The question is, has the court abused that power? And I would make the argument that they have, and as a result, they need to. And you have folks like Scalia and Thomas and others, or Scalia probably being an originalist, saying that we have abused that power and that we need to pull back on that power. But right now, that is not the majority opinion on the court.
So it's very interesting because this
is a great legal issue.
We are
to discuss.
waging the same issue here in Iowa: court jurisdiction to define marriage.
Yeah, that was a horrible decision.
So and we're facing the same litany. Do we wait until we have another governor? Do we wait till we have another legislature? Or we have to replace the Supreme Court? If we don't come to grips with the philosophy of judicial supremacy, we're going to continue to lose these arguments.
I agree with you.
Well, isn't it just tyranny? I mean, that's what we're talking about. Because if they're stepping out of the bounds of what they were given in the Constitution, then basically you're looking at tyranny. And whose job is it to fix that?
Yeah, if they're making law, isn't that an impeachable offense if they legislate?
Right.
Well, again,
that's unconstitutional.
Those are all things that
would a President Santorum call for the impeachment of a Supreme Court that legislates rather than actually interprets the Constitution?
I would probably not call for an impeachment of a Supreme Court justice who is legislating, but I certainly, as my record indicates, would not vote for anybody like that, and would in fact try to put people on the court who would get back to what I believe is a proper interpretation of the rule of the courts with respect to the three branches of government.
How would you know what that would be?
Obviously, you look at, just like we did with Justice Alito and Justice Roberts.
How would you find out what the proper role is and what the
proper
interpretation is?
I believe in. I think Scalia has it pretty close to being right with his originalist intention. Look at look at the original intent of the Constitution. Don't read into it what you would like to. Don't create rights that don't exist there. If the people of the United States of America want to create a right to an abortion, then they can go out and pass laws to do that. But the court shouldn't do that. If they want to create a right to marriage by people who are not not a man and a woman, then there should be a political movement out there to try to change it through the normal process.
Senator Santorum, thank you for joining us here in Iowa.
Jan.
And Kim, thank you for bringing him over.
Jan.
What do you want us to know more than anything else as we are cutting this conversation to an end?
I'm having a great time here in Iowa. This is great. I appreciate the
you
warm
can
hospitality.
do better than that.
He's getting all kinds of press, Jan.
This is great. I mean, look, I came here because I thought it was an important time to speak into the national debate, and you folks have given me that opportunity. Thank you.
And if you want to hear more, 11:30 over at Walnut Creek Church. He will be there. You can ask questions.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Jan.
it. Ken Root has been very patient with us. He's standing by to update us on our farm markets. We'll reconvene right after the news with some Open Light Time.